Hey, I'm Demi Lovato. Through Be Vocal Speak Up for Mental Health, I've had the opportunity to openly share my story with so many people. There are so many other people whose stories need to be heard. That's why I teamed up with amazing filmmaker Shaul Schwartz and served as executive producer on Beyond Silence. The film highlights a journey of 3 people named Jeff, Lauren, and Lloyd who are living with mental health conditions and all found their own ways to live well. Now they are sharing their stories in order to help others. In both its darkest and most joyful moments, Beyond Silence shines a light on the importance of hope in the face of adversity and how family, friends, coworkers, and even pets can make a difference in our lives. I encourage everyone to watch, share, and talk about this film. Only by speaking up, together we can advance mental health in America.
Hi, I'm Karen Roney with the City of Longmont Community Services Department, and with me here today is John Kello, who is the Chief Executive Officer of IBIS Health, and we both here are representing a community-based group here in Longmont called Supporting Action for Mental Health, or we call it SAM. And so what you just saw was an introductory remarks from singer-songwriter Demi Lovato, who produced an award-winning documentary on mental illness called Beyond Silence. And we will be showing that documentary here in Longmont on May 7th at the Stewart Auditorium as part of the Longmont Museum. And we're going to talk a little bit more about that later on in this piece. But first, we want to spend some time and talk to the community about our work with Supporting Action for Mental Health. Supporting Action for Mental Health really started about 3 years ago, and many of you might recall what happened in Longmont about 3 years ago, which was that our community experienced a couple of pretty significant events and tragedies in our community that really were disturbing, and that really was a call to action for our community to come together and basically to say, what is it that we as a community can do to strengthen our work together so that no one experiencing a mental health illness or some kind of mental health tragedy, that they don't feel alone, that they aren't without supports and access to resources and services. So so instead of coming together as a community and condemning the actions that happened in our community regarding a murder-suicide and a fetal abduction, our community came together and said, you know, we really want to strengthen our resolve. We want to figure out how we can work better together and each one of us to take action so that we can support family members and individuals who might be experiencing mental health crises in our community. So this was kind of a journey, kind of a process, but we organized, there were several things that happened that led to the formation of SAM. We held a community meeting. We had probably 75 to 80 community members that came together about 3 years ago and started to talk about what it is that we want to do in response to these community tragedies and how we can all work better together to support people who are struggling with mental health issues. That led to ongoing meetings of these 75 community members, and we worked on trying to figure out what it is that we could do. And what we landed on was we decided that we wanted to hold community conversations. We wanted to have more conversations, invite more people to come together and talk about really 3 things. One, how am I impacted by mental health? What kind of community do I want to be a part of that really supports people who are struggling with mental health? And the third thing, which is probably the most important thing, was what can I do as an individual community member to make a difference in the life of someone who might need assistance with mental health issues? So as part of getting ready to launch these community conversations, we sponsored an event called a Day for Grace, which was an off-Broadway event. And we were able to bring that event to Longmont High School. And we had over 500 people join us at Longmont High to be a part of this off-Broadway play, and then to really come together and learn about all the different resources that were available right now in our community to help people with mental health. That was really the kickoff for our community conversations, which we held, and had probably another 250, 300 people that came together to talk about, to answer those three questions. And we came away from those conversations with many pages of ideas, different kinds of things that we can do. We learned from each other about what really could be helpful, what are small things that we could do as a community that could make a big difference. So we had lots of conversations, we had lots of ideas, and which led to basically deciding if we could choose one or two big things in our community that we could do as a large community that would really make a huge difference in the lives of people and families who are needing help with mental health issues, that there were really two things that rose to the top. And those had to do with more community outreach and community education about mental health, about mental illness, and to really help people get access to services and resources that are already available in our community. We discovered that there are lots of things that people are doing, lots of services, lots of resources, but folks didn't know they didn't know they existed, they didn't know how to access them. And I think the other piece that came up in our conversations is the stigma around mental health and the stigma around asking for help and needing assistance. So those were the things that we said, if we can make a difference in our community, that will go a long way in helping folks who might need assistance. And the other area that we decided to tackle was how do we help to bridge the gap in some of the services that are available to people in our communities. So those were the two things that we identified, and then we formulated and kind of more formalized, I guess, our group that we call SAM, Supporting Action for Mental Health. And that's what we've been doing basically for the last 2 years, is working on those particular actions within our community. So sometimes things just come together, and what happened for us and to help us launch our initiative and take action on these particular areas that we had identified was we got a call from the Colorado Health Foundation, from a grant officer there, and said, hey, we hear that you are doing some incredible things in Longmont around connecting the Longmont community with mental health care, and we want to learn more about what you're doing, and we want to fund you. So we want to support your efforts. So we were able to get access to this Colorado Health Foundation grant, and John was part of helping us write that grant. And the Colorado Health Foundation invested $200,000 in our in SAM, that really, and our focus was really on the community education and outreach part of our work. And there were several components to our grant, and that came directly out of the community conversations and what people told us would be really helpful for us to offer. So one of those had to do with mental health first aid. Another opportunity that is funded through the grant is to help support and to continue the community conversations that we were having in Longmont. So the grant provided support for that. The third thing was for us to be able to have an online resource that people could access 24/7 to learn more about all the different services and information and things that they might need to help with whatever that they are struggling with, or whatever would support their mental health wellness. And then the fourth thing that we really focused on with this grant had to do with reducing stigma. So how is it that we could reach out to the community, to educate the community, and to really make it okay for someone to reach out and ask for help when they needed help. So those were the four things that we wrote into our grant proposal, and for which we received $200,000 in funding to support those efforts. Plus, the money helped us to hire a part-time coordinator, because we're all kind of volunteering for this effort. So some of us, obviously, John has a job, I have a job, but this isn't our primary work. And so having a part-time coordinator was an amazing resource for us, and a boost for us to really take these ideas from paper and to place those into action. And we have been, I think, really successful in following through and doing some incredible work in our community. Don't you think that's the case, John? John has been great. He's been significantly involved in carrying out some of these actions.
And honestly, it was a gift to get the opportunity to do this. I have worked 25 years in the emergency room setting, doing psychiatric evaluations, working with people in crisis. And what I discovered was that I'm a storyteller. I like stories. And every person I see, they have their story that they tell that leads up to the point where they were in this crisis. And it ends up in the emergency room. It ends up in some significant event that is, changing for them, life-changing for them in many ways. And what became really obvious was that in every story that somebody would tell, there are all these places along the way that the journey could have been much different if it wasn't for the stigma, if it wasn't for individuals in their lives who know nothing that they didn't want to do. They wanted to do things, but they didn't know what to do or how to do it. And about 3 years ago, I stumbled upon mental health first aid. Quite by coincidence, somebody from the hospital came and taught a class. I went into it very skeptical, because most of these things don't really show much efficacy in following up with something that becomes meaningful. And I sat in the class, and I was basically floored by how well put together the class was, how well produced it was, and then B, the individuals in the class who had no background in mental health were able to leave with a couple things. One was increased literacy, a better feeling of knowing what it means to have a mental illness, or to know what the different types of signs and symptoms are that they can respond to. And then the bigger part was their ability to know how to respond. And that was really the biggest game changer, because to make a difference, people not only need to know what they're looking for, but to know some ways to respond. And that was great. And so within 2 months, I got a scholarship to teach mental health first aid. I was all excited, and there were no opportunities to teach. So it was a little bit disappointing. And then
that has changed.
That has changed, yes. And not just changed in a little way, but
this is almost your full-time job, right?
It is, yes. Those, sometimes I teach one class a week right now, so it's quite exciting. I've taught over 500 people. Our group of teachers, we have trained 15 other individuals for adult mental health first aid and 14 for youth mental health first aid. So we have more trainers in the community now, and we've over 1,000 people have been trained so far in the program, and we're over halfway to our goal of training 2,000. So we've come a long way. And the biggest thing is to imagine what a community is like, where that many more people in the community have some skills, have some knowledge to respond, and that's a big game changer. So we're really excited about those changes and the potential for everybody in the community to experience that. So mental health first aid has been a big changer in that.
And the money that we received from the Colorado Health Foundation helped us to train those additional trainers that
Yeah.
you talked about. So we were able to increase our training corps several fold.
Yep.
And that is really helping us to train 2,000 people in the city of Longmont.
And the other amazing
mental
thing
health
is,
first
yeah,
aid.
and at $70 to take the class on average for the price of the class, having the availability in the community to offer it for free, it's to ask somebody to give up 8 hours of their day to take a mental health first aid class is a big thing, and then to ask them to pay for it too is another. Their community's been great. The city of Longmont has been paying their employees to come take the classes and get the education. I know that Longmont United Hospital has done the same. They pay their employees to take the class, and the community response has been phenomenal as far as supporting this individuals getting trained. So that's been really nice to see.
You know, and I think one of the other things that we might want to call out as far as what we've been able to accomplish is that we have created, I think, 5 very specific conversation guides on mental health. So we took the model that we created 2 years ago, and we also modified that a little bit because our original conversations were 3 hours long. And so we were also pretty mindful that not everyone might want to be involved in a 3-hour conversation on mental health. So we created specific conversation guides that don't necessarily have to be facilitated by someone who has facilitation skills. That could be your neighborhood group could pick up this guide, your men's group, whatever, that more informal conversations could take place among existing groups on mental health. And the topics that we also had specific conversation topics that deal with depression, bipolar disorder, coping with loss, and also caring for our own mental health. So we created some very specific guides that are more informal conversations, and we just really want to make it easier for people to be able to have a conversation and have a bit of a guide around that conversation and kind of let that conversation go and flow wherever it might.
And the conversations have been amazing. Every time that people have had them that I've talked to, I've had the honor of facilitating a few of them. And what's nice is it impacts various areas. For example, it impacts the stigma piece. Oftentimes, individuals who are in the conversation will share their own experiences. And one of the things we find that addresses stigma the best is shared experiences, helping people realize that someone that we know is going through the experience. I often bring up in my classes right now about Michael Phelps, the swimmer who's come out about his depression. And not everybody knows about that, but him coming out about his depression, Demi Lovato coming out about hers, bipolar disorder. Once people do that and we see that people have these things that are going on in their lives, and then we have people that we meet who are friends or family or business associates who reveal theirs as well, it really helps us decrease the negative stigma, because the stigma is probably one of the biggest barriers for people seeking treatment, and also for people getting better too, because they tend to get locked into this paradigm of who they are and what they are without reaching out to other options. And so it's helped with that. And then also the conversations lead to increased literacy, obviously, because we bring up the topics in a way that people are conversing about, and that's really helpful.
So I think since you talked a little bit about stigma, and what we learned is that probably some of the most effective ways of being able to address stigma and reduce that is from people talking about their own personal experiences and sharing their stories. So we have an incredible opportunity coming to Longmont on May 7th. That we kind of talked about at the beginning of this piece is that we are sponsoring a kickoff event at the Stewart Auditorium down at the Longmont Museum, and it's on May 7th. The event begins at 6:30 in the evening. Pretty sure that's the time. And we're going to be doing several things. One, we are showing the documentary that is Beyond Silence that you saw the clip in the beginning of this particular piece, and it's a fairly short documentary, and it basically has 3 different individual talking about their, their stories and their struggles, and how they really come together is they also talked about how their lives have been transformed by now sharing their stories and telling others about their mental health struggles, and how speaking up about what they were experiencing is really helping them all to live well. So it's an incredible piece, and we are really excited to be able to show that on May 7th at the Stewart Auditorium. And there's more, right? So one of the individuals who is featured in that documentary, and his name is Jeff Fink, he is going to be with us in person, and he's going to be sharing more of his own personal story with us. And he also is going to introduce us to his mental health service dog named Earl. So Earl and Jeff will be at the Stewart Auditorium, and Jeff's going to really, again, share his own story, but he's also going to be talking about how the human-animal bond is can really make a huge positive impact in someone's recovery from mental health and support of ongoing mental wellness. So we will have that opportunity also on May 7th, and then at the end of the documentary and the talk from Jeff and Earl is that we then will have an opportunity for refreshments, and then really to have a chance to talk with Jeff a little bit more, one-on-one at the close of the presentation. Okay. So we hope that the Longmont community will come out for that. As part of our kickoff event for May is Mental Health Awareness Month. We have on our website, and if you want to just basically to search for Supporting Action for Mental Health Longmont, it will take you to our webpage on the City of Longmont's website, and you will be able to get information about a variety of activities that will be taking place during May in support of Mental Health Awareness Month. You will also be able to see all the other work that we're doing, and as John mentioned, is we keep a listing of all of our mental health first aid classes. That is because of the grant, as John mentioned, is that we are able to offer those at no cost to the community for the rest of 2018. So now is the time, if you are interested in being able to gain a little more skill in terms of how you might be able to reach out and help someone who might be experiencing a mental health challenge. This is really your opportunity to tap into this invaluable training at no cost other than your investment of time, which is a cost, but it is really well worth it. And so I'll just kind of put that plug in, and you can always find out what's happening with Sam on the website.
Yeah. And definitely it's a cost, but it's also an investment. So that time will often pay off. We've had so many people who have finished mental health first aid and gone out in the community and ran into a situation where they knew what to do, knew how to respond. They came back and shared their stories. And we're looking forward to sharing those on our website as we go on too. So you'll be able to see some of the endorsements of mental health first aid and how effective it is. And I don't sponsor things that aren't effective, and I don't definitely teach as much on things that I don't really believe in. And I'll tell you, it's very effective. So get out there. Also, we'll have a sign-up table to sign up for mental health first aid classes at the event. So there'll be lots of ways to get involved. So we look forward to having you join us in that. So yes, as Karen was telling us about the community involvement in this is wide. And one of the exciting things about it is that we've been really inclusive in all aspects of the community. So we have Spanish-speaking classes as well for both adult and youth mental health first aid. And we've had a great turnout for that. We've also had the opportunity to have various events. And one of the things that we do at all of our events is have interpreters available. And so for our event coming up on May 7th, for example, there will be Spanish interpreting for the event. So there's no language barriers getting the information out there, which is really big. Also, another aspect of the mental health, I mentioned that we have some new youth mental health first aid trainers. And a big part of our stress right now in the community around mental health is for the youth. And to address that, we teach classes for adults who want to have training to support mental health for youth. We'll also have an event on April 26th called Acquiring Mental Health. And that will be taking place at Longmont High School. And that's going to be a great event because it's going to be opportunities for parents and youth to get together and have professionals that will be offering information sessions, opportunities to find out about different types of services available, and especially opportunities to get out and talk. And that's a big thing. So make sure that you come, that you bring your parents, if you're youth, if you're adult, bring your kids. And if you just want to learn more about it, just come on in and it'll be an opportunity for an evening of a lot of learning.
So once again, all of this information that we have spoken about is available on our website. And so you can just search Supporting Action for Mental Health Longmont, take you right to that page, and you can stay up to date and get information about all of these activities that we have talked about here, here with you. And I think we just want to close and really thank you for the opportunity for us to talk about this community-based effort that we are really excited to be a part of, Supporting Action for Mental Health. This truly is a community-based effort, and we are constantly learning from others, from each other, from new members who come into our initiative with new ideas. So we are constantly learning, constantly evolving, and we are also constantly inviting members of our community who say, you know, I want to be a part of this. I want to learn more about how I can contribute, how I can make a difference in my community in supporting mental health activities and mental wellness. So we really would encourage you to join us, to look for information on the website. It has our coordinator's name. Her name is Julie Phillips. She is a wealth of information, and she would be happy to follow up with you on in any way possible, and to see how you might be involved in this effort. So thank you.